Anna Learmonth, GM Sales and Legal Administration of Stockland Retirement, is our next speaker. Anna has a long association with the care sector through her academic training and business career. In November, she was appointed General Manager of Sales and Legal Administration, responsible for sales and the contractual structures of Stockland's will offer. Anna, welcome.
Good morning, and what a wonderful morning. We've talked a lot about some of the challenges facing us as an industry this morning, and I think this is one of certainly Stockland's and some other operators' challenges going forward, in terms of we have these older, poorer performing, for want of a better definition, villages, which absolutely need the investment that we can do. But on current performance, if you're regulated and overseen by a leadership team and a board like we are, sometimes getting that investment can be tricky. Let's just say that's the least of our challenges, and this is really definitely part of our challenges. I've really only been, as introduced, part of this business for about 3 years, so certainly nothing in comparison to the extraordinary experience in this room, and I have run both the operational side and have just moved recently to running sales and legal administration. I do want to talk about Stockland's growth plans. Chris alluded to some of our plans earlier today, which came out in our half-year results, but these include a really strong push on greenfield, and we've talked about that this morning. We've just kicked off what I call significant investment in the brownfield space. But in addition to these, I really would like to highlight our growth plans around figuring out our established villages, because of our 60 plus villages, that's our absolute biggest challenge. If you'd told me a couple of years ago, and there are a few of my peers sitting in the organisation that sat around the same table, that not only some of these villages that back then we thought were incredibly challenging, if you'd told us then that not only would they be full in 2015, but we would have a waiting list and a demand for development, I think there would have been more than some chuckles around the room. So just briefly, Stockland today, our growth agenda, and the two things that really are key for us to deliver. And I'm conscious that Peter said this morning that we're really not in the property business, and I absolutely subscribe to that view. But for us, if you like, the two key things, you've got to get the asset right and you've got to have the right people and leadership. Briefly, many of you know Stockland, so I won't bore you too much here. A very diverse portfolio. We're a REIT, big retail portfolio, big and very hot residential portfolio at the moment across the country, strong in office and trying to re-establish ourselves in office and industrial. So all of that plus our retirement business, which has been around for about 10 plus years now. So Stockland Retirement grew out of the two big acquisitions, ARC and Avum, over the period. We did other acquisitions, obviously a fully integrated retirement business, and recently we did sell two of our Rylands villages in Melbourne, and we're really focused on growth through diverse development, which I'll talk about. Our greenfield and brownfield development pipeline, it is national. Key messages from this slide. We're looking at the moment, we're developing 20 plus villages. We have a split between greenfield units and brownfield or village extension pipeline units, and obviously trying to invest a significant amount in this space. We've got about 2,800 greenfield units in the pipeline right now nationally. Our greenfield sites, as Chris alluded to, will deliver over 300. In terms of what's on the ground, being constructed and on the ground at the moment, it's about 380, 400 units obviously being delivered at the moment. So we obviously look at that on a weekly and monthly basis. Recent openings, on the left there is our new Salandra Rise retirement village not far from the Glen in southeast Victoria. In the middle there is MacArthur Gardens that we're just about to sell out of our last stage here in Camden. That's sort of one of the first development villages Stockland really jumped into. And Mernda there on the right in the northern corridor of Melbourne. Mernda Village is part of our big residential development. Opened Valentine's Day, 14th of February, and is selling extremely well and doing well, mostly 2 and 2+ bedroom product with the double garage, as we we absolutely agree that we're sort of going back to the family home in our villages, so I certainly agree with Chas there. I think what's been in the press recently is our actively pursuing brownfield redevelopment, taking our older assets that are in extraordinary locations, not fit for purpose for either today, frankly, or tomorrow's market. Our Cardinal Freeman redevelopment here in Ashfield is our first major commitment in this space. We publicly communicated we're spending about $160 to $170 million on this, totally repositioning this village. For those of you who know the location, just a fantastic location about 7 k's from Sydney City. Beautiful apartment product is coming out of the ground there. Buildings are about 4 or 5 stories high. The whole site's interconnected, or going to be obviously when it's complete. Location, heritage listed buildings on site, heritage listed sandstone wall, absolutely gorgeous. And our connection with Opal Aged Care, which we announced over the last year, provide us a terrific opportunity for state-of-the-art facilities at that site. An enormous time commitment and team commitment over 5 years has got us to this point. Significant village stakeholder and community engagement. Some pretty interesting internal challenges to get various approvals at the right time for this to proceed, and those conversations continue to happen, except now it's not tell me more, it's now just quicker. So that's always a fun conversation. Initially launched in February, so we've launched our first buildings, and that's being received well. And we're being watched closely, not only in the sector but also certainly within Stockland, other business units and our board. We're really proud of what's coming out of Cardinal, but I'm going to be honest, we could do this 5 times over in our portfolio right now, but to try and have the resources, the skill set and the appetite for that is just not there. And I spoke to the head of development yesterday, and we were talking, well, if we were to do this 5 times, what would that take? I might take her back the stretch target of let's do 10 and see her fall off her chair. Or just walk out crying, I'm not sure which. So really, the key message for us at the moment is we've got 40 plus other villages, and they are various ages. Our oldest village just turned 41. So we've got some interesting. I was very happy to hear that Ballarat is improving, because that village is down in the rather cold Western Districts where I grew up, so I know all about Ballarat. If we're going to remain relevant across our portfolio, we really need to ignite some energy into some of our current established assets, which brings me right back to my first point, which is how do we address in villages where we have current challenges, how do we not only invest but plan for the future? And this might be developing a patch within the village, taking some common land or taking an old village manager's unit and redeveloping it. It might be we've got some adjacent land, or it could be just how do we absolutely invest a significant refresh, for want of a better term, in order to turn that village around. I think at Stockland, and I've been part of these decisions, we've been too slow, not courageous enough in our efforts to invest, to make the tough calls about what we can do with our current villages, to really get them to a situation where we take the opportunities that are in front of us. So there are 6 villages in our portfolio which, again, as I said, if you'd been a fly on the wall in these meetings 3 years ago, absolutely the conversation would have been too old the product, never relevant, what are we going to do with it? Vacancies will never go away. It's a little bit to the Glen conversation of some of these early stage phases in these developments are 1-bed studio product that frankly do not meet today's market. So rather than think in parallel, we're about to invest $160 million in Ashfield, and we've got all these other greenfields. The appetite to do significant redevelopment across some of our other villages was less than forthcoming. So rather than push that barrow, we embarked on what we called a refresh program. And the results, frankly, have been staggering. So of all of the 6 villages that we've really made an effort towards, they are either full or reserving within weeks of notification. We are seeing that 100-day turn, which is fantastic. in some of these villages, or these 6. 2 of them did have space for us in the village to redevelop or develop adjacent land, and we said, no, wait, and here we are today going, what were we doing? We've not only got a full village, we have a wait list for our units that are hitting the ground in May, June this year, and if we could bring all 50 units online at the one time, we would. So what's seen the turnaround? Really, it's around the physical asset and investing in that, and our people. So just for some pictures, we recognised this need to invest. I'm just going to show you some before and after pictures of one of these villages where on the left, frankly, it was just tired. And that's the only descriptor I'll use. Generally, the construction was fantastic. I mean, the organisations that built all of our villages, particularly our older villages, they're fantastically constructed. They're just looking fatigued and tired, and on a relatively small amount of money. And I know a small amount of money will mean different things to all of us in this room, but from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands, we have entirely repositioned some of these villages. So we felt not a huge investment for the returns we're now seeing. This is an example of our community centre at the same village. The community centre felt like it was being strangled, frankly, by the forest of palms that we had. It's a southeast Queensland village, and just with some really strong regional leadership, some specialist support and capital investment. And interestingly, I'm not talking about designers or external. We grabbed some village managers, one particular village manager, who just is really smart with her capital expenditure. And she said, if we do this, this and this will revolutionise this village. She's now taken a state-based role in that. So she goes and advises about what can you spend in your village to our Queensland team. And the results have been fantastic. It's really opened and refreshed the village. This was the pool. Again, sort of felt like a totally claustrophobic, old, in terms of how it was positioned, sort of area, and it's really opened up and modernised, and this is a village we're seeing significant waitlist and demand for our product. We fixed the roofs, we fixed the unit facades, upgraded the community centre, retaining walls, landscaping. So again, not massive repositioning like we're doing elsewhere in the portfolio, but an opportunity to really reposition and make these units more relevant. And this was all obviously common area. It's similar to, again, what Chaz said, we are spending quite a lot internal to the unit so that it is modern and fresh for the current market. So we recognised without getting these villages right, we're not going to get the millions of dollars for the greenfield and the brownfield. The board look at us as a whole business and say, if you can't get that right, we're certainly not going to give you $20, $30, $40 million for this greenfield over here. So that's what we've really focused on. We'll do another 6 or 8 in the next year, and we're absolutely relying on the fact that I need to, as head of sales, fill the vacancies and commit to these millions of dollars to develop those sites across all 6. The second thing is people are key, and we've heard it this morning. I certainly, this is not revolutionary stuff in any way, shape and form, other than I fully support what's been said. Without the strongest village management team on the ground, your ability to connect, like that family business we heard, will be limited. And we have made some tough calls, sometimes against the wishes initially of the residents and the residents committee, but we have now had them come back to us and say, we see what we were missing, thank you very much. So that has taken some courage. Where we have not been able to fully fund the village manager through the residents, we have supplemented that. We've said, in order to get the right person, we've got to pay this. And frankly, that difference we will cover. Over time, the residents may be able to cover that or portion of that, but the ability for us to have then a strong performing village far outweighs any potential, of $10,000 or $20,000 that we might be supplementing. And it's not at every village, but certainly at those villages where we felt we needed a strong leader, we've just gone in and put in the right person and paid the difference. get the right expert support in from either the team or outside of Stockland. Having taken over sales, I think, having sort of flipped over the fence, as many of my old ops team will tell me, I can bring a unique perspective to try and make sure the teams are much more aligned. It works some villages, it doesn't work others, but where it works, extraordinary performance, extraordinary. And as a leadership team, we know then we're not worried about that region or that cluster of villages. So strong leadership is key. So that's really my piece for this morning. I think my key takeaways are, even when an asset may not be performing, try and have the courage to spend the money, because I think when they both align in a couple of years' time, you'll be grateful that you had the courage, anticipate the demand, and make the tough calls around leadership.